As for the Buckeyes, Ryan Day pleased with where things stand 4 games in.
They're executing on the field well. They're building confidence. I say all that, and you guys know what I'm going to say. Like, we're not anywhere near where we need to be. We have to continue to get better. We got a lot of work to do, but to play the way that we played up to this point shows maturity, and that was a big emphasis point for us this summer. With a team that hadn't had a lot of experience, guys needed to step into roles and play experienced.
Jerry, this is a different team than they had a season ago. Offensively, defensively, it feels largely the same. Obviously, different personnel. Matt Patricia running the defense. We're going to talk to Caden Curry coming up here later in the show. He's been a breakout star. But how would you assess where the Buckeyes are 4 games in?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ryan Day hit it on the head, right? And I think, as we talked last week, the schedule has a lot to do with it. I mean, coming off the Washington win was a perfect way to get ready for the rest of the season. Just because a team is ranked number 1 doesn't really mean that they're the best team or best team in our conference. But Ohio State looks that way. They look like they're improving every weekend. Julian's saying they've got to figure out what he can do as a quarterback. And it's clear that there's no hangover about they won the championship last year and they just think they can come and show up and win another one. They are a motivated team. So making sure they're putting the quarterback, Julian, in the position he needs to be. But there's also a lot of progress, Trevor, with the coaching staff. I mean, you mentioned Matt Patricia. Now, he's come from the NFL. Now he's had 4 or 5 games with a college team, learning the college game. And if there was ever a time when the offenses in the NFL and the offenses in the college game were similar, this is the time they've been most similar in the history of the sport, based on the style of quarterbacks that are playing the game. Obviously, the NFL gets their quarterbacks from college, so you're always going to base your offense around what your quarterback can do. Then you look at Brian Hartline, first-time play caller, Ryan Day on the headsets, obviously. I have to believe that they have made progress in the way that Brian calls the game, the way Ryan interacts with it. So if there's a team in this conference that's making steady progress as a team and as a coaching staff, I don't know any team that's doing it better than Ohio State. And we know they have talent, and now they have talent and reps. That's a recipe for a pretty good team.
It was interesting to hear Ryan Day talk about the offense and talk in particular about what he's asking Julian Sayin to do. He was discussing this both in his news conference this week and also after the game against Washington. I think there are some questions from people. I mean, if you take out the FCS game, Jerry, if you just include FBS games, they're 10th in the Big Ten in total offense. So it's bottom half of the league. I mean, just barely. They haven't been overwhelming people. But I think Ryan has, he certainly intimated or said after that Washington game that having a defense that's as good as their defense is allows him, and by extension allows Brian, to approach the game a little bit differently. Give people a sense, as someone who's been a head coach, been an offensive coordinator, of how you marry those two together.
Well, it's all about game management, right? I noticed that Julian's saying they're moving him more. They're not. He's not as much of a pocket passer, perhaps, as some of the quarterbacks that have been at Ohio State are. You just manage the game, to answer your question, Reverend, though. You don't put the offense in a position where if your defense is struggling, that a turnover would really make it worse for your defense. And Ryan Day's been a play caller for a long time, but now he's been a head coach for a long time. And if there's anyone that can manage a game, I think the best game managers are the ones that come from the offensive side, right? Because they're used to controlling the game as offensive coordinators. So Ryan Day has been calling plays for a long, long time. So when it comes down to interacting with Brian Hartline and interacting with Matt Patricia, he tells Matt, okay, we're going to slow it down a little bit on offense, and we won't put you in a bad position. And he has a sense of how to manage that game more than, say, a defensive coach that becomes a head coach. So I think Brian has this thing totally wired. Again, when you have really talented players and really talented coaches, and you go about your business the way they've done it, improving each week, that's a pretty good recipe.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been an incredible recipe under Ryan Day. I mean, you think about the game this week against Minnesota. I mean, they just don't lose games like this. They're 50-1 against unranked teams under Day. Let's talk about the Gophers. They came off a big win over Rutgers. They came from behind to pull out the win. We were talking about all last week, kind of the familiarity bowl. You had all the overlap between the staffs. You had Ethan Kaliakmanis against his former team. So there are all kinds of storylines there. So now with PJ Fleck, I mean, this is a really different animal going up against Ohio State here this week. How do you manage this situation if you're PJ?
Yeah, the energy drain is what you really worry about, because obviously it was a great battle, X and O wise and physically on the field. But all the emotion, PJ and Coach Schiano and Kaliakmanis, you know, all those subtitles or stories, you know, they wear on you emotionally. But having said that, you know, I mean, I think PJ would consider himself, and I think we consider him, a master motivator. And so, you know, he's going to find a way to get the most out of the players. And he's been a head coach for a long, long time. And here's when you really make good decisions during the game week in preparation. I mean, what's Tuesday's practice look like? Tuesday's the first hard day of practice, right? You play a game on Saturday, different coaches give Sunday or Monday off, and then Tuesday you're back to work. I mean, do you back off on Tuesday? Do you press on? What do you do on Wednesday? And so I think you have to manage your emotions if you're PJ, which I believe he will do as good as anybody, knowing that they've got to go to Ohio State and play a team that's playing lights out now and ranked #1 in the country. I think Drake Lindsay is part of that equation. He's making really good progress. I mean, if you look what he gave to Minnesota last week and what Aiden Kaliakmanis gave to Rutgers, you might give it to Drake. And so you don't want to give Drake issues at Ohio Stadium that stop his progress. So as you put together the game plan, I think you want to say, coming out of this game, we want Drake Lindsay to have as much confidence, whether we win or lose, the way he went into the game. So they've got to do that. If you're Minnesota, protect your quarterback's confidence.
It's particularly impressive the way they have done that when you consider all the injuries in the run game. Darius Taylor banged up. I mean, against FBS teams, they're averaging just over 3 yards per carry. So he hasn't been able to rely on the run game as Gopher quarterbacks typically have. A lot of it's been on Lindsey's arm. And as you said, he certainly delivered in that game against the Scarlet Knights, was Big Ten Freshman of the Week. So that is the lone primetime game in the Big Ten this week, that Ohio State-Minnesota game.